The state of Utah is alleging that Kouri Richins is the mother of three accused of fatally poisoning her husband, Eric Richins. Kouri will be heading to trial April 2025 this month, and we are definitely going to cover her trial. If you clicked on the video, you most likely have heard of the story. So Kouri is alleged to have went on after fatally poisoning her husband, Eric Richins, to write a children's book grieving about him for her children to accept the loss of their father. She now faces 9 felonies, including aggravated M, attempted M, and financial crimes. We'll be going over the main pieces of evidence against Kouri, starting with the walk the dog letter. After Eric's demise, Kouri went on to kind of get famous in Utah. I'm looking now at facts.net, and they did a piece on Kouri, and it raves about her. She was a mental health therapist. She was born in the 80s. She wrote several books, primarily focusing on self-help and personal development. She also ran a blog. This article was written prior to her being charged. It says that she went on to become a licensed therapist, a real estate agent, and we'll talk about that evidence, which might most likely led to Eric's poisoning. It was about finances, and a lot of disputes about money end up going downhill. This article goes on to credit Kouri as a public speaker, how she focuses on mental health. She published her first book in 2015, and she received positive reviews. However, it doesn't say how she met Eric. I remember reading an article about how she met Eric, and she met him working as a cashier at Home Depot. He was a hardworking man in his denim and his cotton tees and his baseball caps and his Ray-Ban glasses, working hard daily, and he was in and out of Home Depot a lot. There was another salesperson that was very fond of him, older lady, and when Kouri became an employee, she hooked the two of them up. After that, Kouri went on to no longer work at Home Depot and became a wife and a mother eventually. If you are familiar with that story, leave a comment below, because the internet paints Kouri as this self-help guru, and it doesn't mention, she worked a regular job at Home Depot. So on to the walk the dog letter and the evidence against Kouri. But first, I want to thank you for tuning in. All of you, my people, I really appreciate you. All the channel members, supporters, people that like, comment, thumbs up, thumbs down, anything, just letting me know that you swung by the channel. I appreciate you. Oh, and if it's your birthday, shout out to you. Happy birthday. And also, if you're celebrating sobriety, shout out to you. Congratulations. Woot woot. And to anybody who's just getting over having a hard day or a hard time, I'm glad you were able to just zone out a little bit on the channel. Big shout out to you. I really appreciate you. Page 1. Walk the dog! Exclamation, exclamation. But take vague notes so you remember. Asterisk. Sky is saying even if the gummies have fentanyl in them, the prosecutor will say, I tried to put the fentanyl in the gummies so Eric would have them. Stupid, I know, but that's what she's thinking. We will still test them though. However, underline, she wants to link Eric getting drugs and from Mexico. So we need to do some kind of connection. Her private investigator is doing some research on the ranch/cartel place Eric would stay at. Here's what I'm thinking, but you have to talk to Ronnie. He would probably have to testify to this, but it's super short and not a lot to it. He will need to tell Sky at the meeting next week. Sidebar, Sky is her attorney. Upon information and belief, quote unquote, just like they say, a year prior to Eric's death, Ronnie was over watching football one Sunday, and Eric and Ronnie were chatting about Eric's Mexico trips. Eric told Ronnie he gets pain pills and fentanyl from Mexico from the workers at the ranch. Not to tell me, because I would get mad, because I always said he just got high and never helped with the kids. There are pictures in my phone of Eric passed out on the floor or in the chair. Ronnie should have text from Eric talking about getting high as well! Exclamation. Eric told Ronnie he keeps them in an allergy pill bottle in his work truck so I wouldn't find them. Ronnie never told me about the conversation. Eric finally told me about the conversation and asked if I can get Carmen to get him some. Eric didn't want anyone to know he had an issue, especially get caught. He always wanted Kouri to go down for him. When they traveled, Eric would put his drugs in Kouri's bag at the time at the airlines, right before they boarded. That way, if they were caught, Kouri got in trouble, not him. Once they got to wherever they were going, Eric would pull the drugs out of Kouri's bag. And it would cause a big fight. She was pissed that he would risk her going to jail. He would risk her going to jail for his drug use. He just would laugh about it. Eric couldn't ruin his image that he had drug issues, so he would do whatever he had to. Kouri has never done any type of pills, didn't like them. Rarely would she consume THC, only if Eric begged her because it was a special occasion. Reword this however he needs to make the point. Just include it all. The connection has to be made with Mexico and drugs. Ronnie will have the messages to prove Eric confided in him about getting high. It can be short and to the point, but has to be done. Upon information and belief, LOL. They never found pain pills or fentanyl in my house because he hid it in an allergy bottle in the work truck and Cody emptied it out. Oh, when you talk to Ronnie about this, meet up with him in person. I worry sometimes your house and phone are bugged. Maybe drive down the street and meet him after work without Bree. Sky has to make this connection between Eric and Mexico because that makes the most sense in her mind. If it's Ronnie's information and belief about the conversation over football, she can use that as a connection. Tell Ronnie don't overanalyze it. It was a quick 2-minute conversation. LOL. Tell him I need him. I need him to do this. Bring me home and then we will get them damn bitches. Also, please text Lotto or call. Tell him do not text me anything about us doing anything together. Ever! Exclamation. Like church, skiing, trips, nothing that puts us together. It doesn't, underline, look good. We're so close to the end. Let's push through. Have the conversation with Ronnie before he meets with Sky. Then tell him to tell Sky at the meeting about the conversation with Eric. Hang in there. We're almost there. Love you to the moon. Heart. Page 4. Saw a commercial yesterday. Utah Mortgage Relief? Can you Google them, please? It's for people behind on their mortgage. Can you see if they can help at all on Marissa's house, please? I have to get hers, yours, and Chelsea's taken care of ASAP. Trying to go to that place in Camas. What about asking Lotto to do a loan solely, underline, in his name and not have you on there? I know he can do a home equity line of credit, on his house and his hideout. Not sure if he would, but I know he has $1 million in equity. Maybe he just doesn't know about the home equity. If he wants to help me, taking care of these loans is most important. I don't give a shit about the yotels. Remember I told you one way to get at Katie is going through my phone, finding pictures of her girls, even with the boys, print 5 copies and send them out anonymously to different media companies. Obviously, don't mail the pictures so it's not traceable. She would be livid if it got out to the public. You would just have to do it sneakily and be careful. She would try and trace it back to you. If not, no worries! Exclamation. Sidebar: Kouri was working really hard on her defense, wasn't she? Luckily, this letter was found. Page 5. Sky is having my girls do the first interview with Good Morning America. Please tell Chelsea to bring up that he hasn't went to church in the 13 years she has known him. And Eric would brag to her about how much he drank and did pills in high school. Tell Kelsey to say Eric, quote, unquote, Eric always wanted Kouri to go down for him. For example, he would put drugs in her suitcase when we would travel together. So if anyone got caught, it was Kouri. He would put it in her bag right before they left the house so Kouri didn't know. Then when they would land wherever, Eric would take them out of her bag and Kouri would be pissed and they would argue about it. Tell Kelsey to say how Eric didn't care and would just laugh about it and say, quote, well, I can't get in trouble, as if it was okay that I got in trouble. Have Selma talk about Eric in Spain not being able to drink, so he was looking for drugs the entire time, and explain the drink the waitress gave him and how I called his doctor and went to the pharmacy immediately. Have Ellie talk about how the sisters have always been jealous of me because anything they could do, Kouri could do better. Being a mom, college, stay-at-home wife until she built a $1 million company, a nice house, car, everything she had, they wanted. This comes down to jealousy, money, and Eric's partying that they don't want to acknowledge, and sadly, an accidental overdose. Lastly, don't forget to work on the gun receipts. We want to file charges and let the prosecutor not do anything about it to use in our defense. Will you buy a box of Crest White strips, open them up, put it in an envelope, have Sky give them to me? You can tell her what's in the envelope. I'm sure she won't care. I'll make sure they can't be found in my cell. My teeth are yellow from so much coffee and tea all day, sad face. I love you, I love you, I love you, exclamation. Hang in there, we're getting there, slowly. You're the best mom in the whole world, exclamation. I'm so lucky to have you, exclamation. And scene. That is the 6-page letter that Kouri titled Walk the Dog. She wanted her mom and brother to come together with her friends and make Eric look like a bad person, but it didn't work because it was found in her cell. She argued that it was illegally searched. However, the letter has been let into evidence. How does Kouri so freely talk to her mother about plotting to avenge herself? Well, her mother was in the past allegedly accused or suspected of being involved in her own spouse's overdose. So there's a history there. When the detectives, I believe Hoffmeyer and Driscoll, when they got to her house, she was so happy. She actually was quoted saying, "I'm so happy you're here." She invited them in and started talking about timelines, finances, jealousy, insurance. It was her mother that actually walked in and said, "Should you be talking to them without an attorney?" And she responded, "Oh, I don't have anything to hide, so I'm fine." So her mother has always been kind of aware, in my opinion, that this will go south. And down south did it go. Oh boy. Prosecutors said that Eric had 5 times the amount of fentanyl in his system, which equaled 20 pills. Initially, it was thought that it was put in a Moscow Mule, but now they are alleging that it may have been put in a shot glass, like a lemon shot. But here's the thing, Eric had no history of taking pills or THC gummies, as Kouri likes to put it. He had no history of this, and prosecutors also alleged that on Valentine's Day, she gave him what they called the Valentine's Day egg sandwich. Kouri allegedly put fentanyl or propofol in Eric's sandwich, and he got very sick, but it did not kill him. So the next time, she knew exactly the amount to put in his drink to cause his demise, is what the prosecutors are saying. Now, the person who gave her the pills, they've already flipped on her. It was a housekeeper. She told that she hid them under a pot, and initially she asked for one amount of pills. That didn't work, and she came back and wanted double, triple that amount to make sure that whatever she was doing worked. Now let Kouri tell it, these pills were for Eric. He wanted them and he freely took them. So in her walk the dog's theory, he took 20 pills that night just to feel good. Now let's get to the good part of this story. In October 2020, Kouri had did some type of scheme and transferred money to her bank and didn't tell Eric what was going on. Well, he found out and changed the trust to his sister, changed the locksmith for the safe, and let his family know and didn't tell Kouri. So you can imagine her shock when she found out her quote unquote plan worked, but she was not receiving a dime. When Kouri realized this, she called a serviceman over to drill holes into the lock, to the safe, trying to find the documents or money or anything that was in the safe that Eric had left there. But his sister came over and stopped her. Kouri says, "You can't tell me what to do. This is my husband, my safe." His sister says, "Oh, yes, I can." Shows her the paperwork. "My brother changed everything over to me, and you are no longer entitled to anything. I'm in control of his trust." Kouri swung on her and allegedly punched her in the face. So there goes the little connection of the sisters being jealous of her, and there's some rivalry between the sisters and Kouri, as it should be if it's true, the horrible things that she did to their brother. But as you can imagine, this put Kouri into a pickle. She tried to say that the detectives violated her rights by taking her phone. She started trying to get her story together, but the judge ruled that she voluntarily gave her password to the detective, and he may have memorized it, but it's fair game. Her phone was in what they call an automobile exception, like they could see it so they can take it. If it's visual, they can seize it, and it's possibly a key to a homicide. So she had no money at that time. So you remember in the Walk the Dog letter we just read, her friend Chelsea, whose house she said, "We have to save Chelsea's house." Well, Chelsea it was her best friend. She gave her a 30-year mortgage and a $2,900 rent for a house that was $450,000. Her friend gave her her life savings. Don't quote me, but I think it was $45,000 and money she had saved up, but the mortgage fell through and Chelsea was stuck paying a way higher mortgage and locked into a terrible deal. Kouri, however, once she got the money, she started transferring money to her accounts to pay off bills and debts that she had. So she was very, very money hungry, according to the prosecutors in this case. So remember that lawyer that Kouri said wouldn't mind to smuggle in some illegal Crest white strips? Take a listen to this.
But KUTV2 News out in Utah reported that according to court filings, Richins had apparently said some not so nice things about Miss Lazaro during a video conversation, reportedly calling Lazaro a dumb expletive. And Richins' family allegedly claimed that Lazaro's ego was taking over.
So that was the end of the relationship between Kouri and Sky. And then we usher in new defense counsel. But the thing with the new defense is when they contacted Kouri and spoke to her in the prison, they didn't sign up for the Homeway app. So all of their calls were recorded and the prosecutor was able to listen to everything, all of their defense strategies, every conversation for a few months. Once they realized this, they wanted it thrown out. But the judge said, if you didn't sign up through the private app, you technically gave consent for your phone calls to be monitored. They are recorded and they do tell you that we are monitoring these calls. So not only does the prosecution have the evidence for finances, the fentanyl, they also have the walk the dog letter and conversations between her and her attorney, her new defense team. When I say new defense team, meaning since her old attorney, Sky, left, these are now court-appointed attorneys, so she's considered indigent at this point. And they are kind of fumbling already from the phone calls. They and Kouri both say that the calls are privileged and they spoke freely thinking that they were on a privileged calls. Under the law, that is typically true. However, by not signing up through the app, as they should know to do, right? They consented to their calls being recorded, therefore giving it to the prosecutors, putting it in their hand, making it admissible in court for the jury to hear, or for the prosecution to use at their will. However, the law firm RQN that's representing Kouri now filed a motion to dismiss the evidence on the phone calls. However, the prosecution responded saying that they will address the filings and the motion at appropriate times and in appropriate forms, and did they. The Summit County Attorney's Office let out a message that was very clear to all the quote-unquote anxious news agencies who had been reporting on the motion to dismiss. They made it very clear that they would respond in the appropriate form, which was court. They responded in court documents. In one document, they stated, quote, "Its audience, content, and purpose are readily apparent. The defendant is asking her mother to facilitate witness tampering involving her brother, seeking to have her brother support a false factual narrative." When referring to the other evidence that fell into their laps, like the walk the dog letter and the phone calls, they quoted Kouri saying, "They took an innocent mom from her babies and this means war. I've been silent for a year, locked away from my kids, my family, my life, living with the media telling the world who they think I am, what they think I've done, or how they think I've lived. And it's time to start speaking up. My defense team has been forced to withdraw from my case, represented or not. We all know and should understand there's only so much I can say. But what I will say is this withdrawal was not my choice, and it has not been a personal choice of any counsel on my defense." Denying the recorded phone call that was presented to the court where she said, and, quote, called her attorney a stupid expletive. We heard that Law and Crime recording a minute ago. I guess Kouri seems to think that her lawyer wasn't offended and really didn't want to withdraw, but we can see in the documents that right after that call surfaced is when she withdrew from her case. Kouri is continued quoted saying, "Who I really am and all that matters is a wife of Eric Richins and a mom of 3 beautiful boys. What I've really done is protect Eric at all cost. What I really didn't do is M-word my husband. I could not and would not ever do that to Eric or anyone for that matter. I'm asking the world to give me a chance. Give me a chance to prove it to you." She sounds a lot like our favorite, Sarah Boone. Know that. Nevertheless, Kouri's defense team, who always seems to have an attitude for some reason with the court and the judge and everyone in the building. So I'm not sure what's going on with that. They're trying to fight a lot of motions and they're losing. They even want to deny the motion for electronic data. The motion that Kouri moved around in the house, where she told the detectives that she slept in the room with the children that night. However, her phone or her device tagged her all around the house, making footsteps and doing things. So her team says, hey, that was beyond the scope of a warrant. However, the judge said, in the cases of drug dealers, let's say, we have a broad scope of a warrant because we don't know what we need to find. So that can include motion, photos, text, emails. It's a broad scope of a warrant. So the judge said, tell me what's different about this case and a drug dealing case. She is accused of administering drugs to her husband and causing his death, poisoning him. So it's very interesting because the judge said he is inclined to deny that motion and probably will. Motions are being dropped. Some charges have been dropped because the prosecutors are going for the bigger hunk of meat. They aren't going for the side orders. They want to get her for the big thing. So they've negotiated and dropped some charges, but before the case goes to trial at the end of April, they'll be back in court to finalize what will be let in and what will be thrown out.
I'll end it with this. Regardless if it was 2 minutes or not, the judges have the ability to limit the scope. They know they can limit the scope. The affiant is requesting that scope, that for a very limited scope, no changes are made whatsoever. That is the main concern, is we know that we are asking for something very specific, Judge, yet we want to go into everything, and there is nothing done by the signing judges to limit that scope.
I think you've preserved that argument. Pause for just a second.
Sure.
The relief requested is an order suppressing, quote, all evidence obtained from the search of defendant's cell phone and Apple user IDs pursuant to search warrants. Is there and if your answer today is not prejudicial to you thinking about it and coming back, but
sure,
is there a specific piece that you would say they have seized or offered as potential evidence of something in this case that is outside the scope of an investigation of aggravated murder? Because that limitation has to mean something.
I mean, the majority of what's been provided, because again, we have a mirror image.
Right.
So I think the things that they're going to use, that the state is going to use in their prosecution related to this is very, very minor.
Okay.
Yet, they've used information to gain insight into Miss Richins' life.
Well, part of that was necessary given the financial before and after or financial status quo considerations.
Sure. I would note that and I know Your Honor has indicated it, I think, twice or three times now, the financial aspect. I want to be clear. So is Your Honor referring to the motive?
Well, I think under the statute, one of the aggravating factors would be for pecuniary gain.
Got it.
As you see, Kouri's new defense team is climbing a steep mountain, swimming against powerful waters, going against the grain. They are working hard to do everything they can to get any evidence out they can. So we'll see before the end of April what the judge is going to let in and throw out exactly. Wanted to be sure to update you on little things before we get to the trial, because it's starting very soon. April 24th, I believe, and between her, Lori Vallow, and Daryl Brooks, we're going to have a ball. So stay tuned. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you. You have a good day and take care. Bye.